I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is a regularly scheduled Greer City Council meeting called and convened this April the 14th, 2015. Having called the meeting to order, I'd like to ask you to join me as we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for an invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Dear kind Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the blessings that have brought us to this point today. We thank you for health and strength, for guidance and direction, and I ask now that you be with us through this meeting. Give us insight and understanding. Give us empathy. Give us direction. Help us to be the stewards that you have called us to be in this task to lead our city. We thank you for these citizens that have come tonight with an interest in the business of the city. We pray that our decisions would be worthy of their interest. We thank you for those that are committed to working for the city. We ask your blessings upon them and your safety upon them as they often undertake long and sometimes dangerous jobs, and we pray for their continued safety. We ask now that you'll be with us through the rest of this meeting and that you will guide and direct in all that we say and do. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
We thank you for being with us this evening as we gather for our council meeting. Having called the meeting to order and done some of the initial things there on the list, we find ourselves at the public forum time. This is a time that we set aside for those folks that would like to speak of items of interest on the agenda this evening to appear. Ms. Duncan, do we have any items for public forum this evening?
No, sir.
With that, then, we'll move on to the minutes of the council meeting. Council, you've got contained in your packet the March 24th minutes. I'll entertain a motion that they be received.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any items of note for the clerk? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Ms. Bookert?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. It is always my privilege to be able to recognize and commend employees of the city of Greer. As I mentioned, they are the backbone of our existence, and we are only as good as our employees are. And one of the things that make us great is great employees, and we certainly appreciate the effort that they put in. As I mentioned, many of the positions here are long hours, unusual hours, sometimes involve public safety, and we are always appreciative of those folks who give them time of their time and their talents to make the city of Greer what it is. And this evening we want to recognize with a resolution the following employees. And it says, whereas the city of Greer endeavors to recognize and reward its dedicated and faithful employees, and whereas Bobby Teague has served in the Parks and Recreation Department for 5 years, Dan Reynolds has served the Police Department for 10 years. Richard Bradshaw has served the Fire Department for 15 years. Chad Richardson has served the Police Department for 15 years. And Marcus Kelly has served in the Police Department for 20 years. Whereas these employees have served in a distinguished and professional manner, now let it be therefore resolved that the City Council of the City of Greer, South Carolina, in a meeting duly assembled, wishes to officially recognize and commend to these employees for the distinguished and dedicated service which they have performed. Be it further resolved that the City of Greer hereby rewards these dedicated employees with a certificate of appreciation and an administrative day off with pay, approved this the 14th day of April 2015. With that, I'd like to recognize Chief Dan Reynolds. Dan, if you'd come forward. Mr. Administrator, you want to join me in recognizing some of these folks? Thank you, Dan. Chad Richardson. Chad, thank you for your service. And Marcus Kelly. Appreciate it. Thank you. Join me in a final round of applause for all these folks. I know the administrator will include comments in his report, but while we are doing special recognition for employees, my hat is off to our recreation department. This past weekend, we had our second annual international festival, and it was a huge success. We were able to move the venue outdoors this year and to avoid the situation we had last year where we got rain and we had to move indoors, but actually worked out okay. It gave us a more intimate setting for our festival, but with over 25 countries being recognized in arts and crafts and dance and music and sports displays and all the things that were going on in the park this weekend. It was a wonderful Saturday, and our recreation department and special events staff here have done a just wonderful job of helping not only create and that festival, but to sustain it as well too. And we are looking to continually grow that festival. It is important for us to recognize the diversity of our community in all regards. And this is one of the ways that we do it, by helping people better understand others' cultures, because I think we will find that if we find those things that we have in common, that it helps bring us together as a community. And this is one way of doing that in a fun and festive way. And one of the things that I've asked our folks that have worked on this committee or worked on this festival to do is to put special emphasis on children's events, because this is a way for our children in our community to better understand that we operate on a global basis, and for many of them, they're used to seeing different folks in their schools and in their churches and in different places, and to begin to get an understanding and a better feel for the very fact that while we may dress differently, we may speak a little different languages, and we may play different games, we're all the same in a lot of regards, and that starts with being citizens here in Greer. And so a great festival, and a tip of the hat to those employees that worked this weekend and helped make that festival as special as it was. With that, then, we're going to move on to petitioners, and we have a petitioner with us this evening that would like to speak. Mr. Harold Anderson from the New Beginnings Outreach Ministries would like to petition council in regards to a building that the city owns on Snow Street. And so with that, Mr. Anderson, the podium is yours, sir.
Good evening, council. My name is Harold Anderson, my wife Linda. My address is 208 Glen Rise Court in Greer. We're here to petition the council to lease the building on the Snow and Davis, a building that we feel will utilize our needs and help the city to generate some incomes and funds to help reach the people in the community in the city. because my wife has a PowerPoint presentation that will show you exactly what we're supposed to do and how it could benefit everyone in the city and work together to make this a place where we all can work together as a melting pot and be productive in the church and also in the city. So now I'll let my wife present her presentation.
My name is Linda Anderson. I'm co-pastor of New Beginnings Outreach Ministry. It's my husband Harold. I'm going to pass one of these out if it's okay. To pass one, give everybody one of these. And I'm going to do a power presentation and do the
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as again, we are New Beginnings Outreach Ministries, my husband has stated, and who's the senior pastor of New Beginnings Outreach Ministry. We want to partner with the city of Greer in the community development. I need my glasses, sir. Thank you. Okay, we are a nonprofit organization. We are 501c3. We got incorporated in June of 1996, South Carolina Corporation. Our ministries include, of course, New Beginnings Church, and we have community outreach programs, youth and children's ministry, men and women ministry, marriage ministry. We have a ministry of the arts, domestic and foreign missions. Okay, okay. Just click it. Okay, good. Okay, vision and mission statement. Our visions for this building that we want to lease is to build an infrastructure with the local Greer community, to foster economic growth, and to boost the awareness of efforts to restore the natural beauty of the community. Also, our mission is going to be provide educational, spiritual, cultural, and vocational opportunities for members within our local community. I'm an educator myself. I work currently with Greenville Technical School, and I also work with the school district. And so education and, of course, in the spiritual things and culture is very important as a ministry, so that's one of the things we want to do. Historical overview of the property. I talked to a gentleman whose father was one very instrumental in building this building years ago, and the property was originally a Greer campground meeting for old tabernacles in the John Wesley Methodist meetings. And they built they actually had their first association August of 1993. But they moved their campgrounds to Greer in 1918. And what I thought was awesome when I was studying the history is that they maintained unity and a spiritual environment just by having that location, having these meetings coming in. And it brought what Mary was talking about earlier, a diversity of people into the area. And of course, when you bring a diversity of people into the area, it's going to cause growth in the community. So it was, of course, it's been replaced now, and the new building was erected in 1955. So what's our plan of action? Number one, we want to partner with the city of Greer to help change the neighborhood dynamics. Formation of neighborhood groups. We want to have a collaboration with different stakeholders that's involved. Facility use and a lease of our facilities. Lease of this facility. The first thing is changing the neighborhood dynamics. What we propose to do is work closely with the city of Greer and local officials to build trust in the neighborhood, but developing rapport with the families in that neighborhood. We want to transform the lives by integrating teaching and training. Why do we do that? We want to provide life skill workshops such as credit repair, budgeting, job readiness, cooking, and sewing class. I was talking to one of the ladies, and she's a senior like I am, and when she goes in to do resumes and she go on the computer, I'm not intimidated by computers, but a lot of people are. So we have a computer lab set up. When they come in, we can teach them how to maneuver the computers and use it without being intimidated. because technology is here to stay. Recruit volunteers to help us facilitate the workshops. So it won't be more cost effective to get volunteers to help do this. Formation of neighborhood groups. We propose to unify and engage the local community in discussions about what do you want to do for your neighborhood. And how we plan to do this, have neighborhood group meetings. And we want to organize such events like back-to-school parties, senior activities, community cleanup day. These are some of the things that we propose to do. Collaboration. Who are the stakeholders involved? First of all, why do we want? We want to partner with various agencies to assist in the quality of life, which is very important, and economic development in the community. These are some of the possible partnerships. City of Greer, these are stakeholders. School district, have a literacy program with the elementary schools. We can't do every school, but we can start with one school at a time to help enhance the programs that's already there. The local healthcare agencies, we're currently right now, the Greenville Health System allows us, because of our facility, we are leasing space right now. We sublease space from Hispanic Church. And Greenville Hospital System allows us on Tuesday nights to come in and use the upstairs classroom for training. And it's open Bible study for anybody who wants to come. So they're partnering with us on that. Local businesses, local churches. And you probably say, why Hispanic? Because you know that the dynamics and our area is changing in terms of Hispanic population. So we want to get involved in Hispanic organizations to get them involved too. So these are some of the people who are stakeholders that we want to collaborate with. Facility use. It'll be a multi-purpose building. Of course, we want to hold our weekly church services and Bible studies. We want to set up a reading room, a computer lab, a math lab, tutorial programs for adults and youth, have arts and crafts, host seminars, workshops, and conferences monthly. Who are the benefactors? The community, the city, the hotels, the shops, the restaurants, because when you have activities, people come into the city, and guess what? They spend money. They enjoy themselves. And this is the last part of the slide. It's a lease of facilities. We desire to lease the facility for a 10-year lease with the City of Greer. We'll be responsible for the utilities and liability insurance and any maintenance of property and repairs. That ends my presentation. Any questions?
Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, we appreciate the presentation. Well done, and thank you for the time and effort that you have spent on that. Council will take this under advisement. We have not determined future uses exactly at this point, and are deferring on any decision until we've had a point to see the building and do some analysis of it ourselves, and to get a better understanding from our staff about needs and what may be appropriate uses for the building in the future. So we will take your petition under advisement and keep the information that you have given us, and as we move forward at some time, hopefully in the near future, can advise you about how the city intends to move forward. Okay? Thank you for being with us this evening. With that, then, we're going to move to the administrator's report. Mr. Driggers.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. At your places today, you will see that we've left a pocket card. That card is a USB data card. What is contained on this card that we have for you this evening is a copy of our annual report. Many of you have asked that we provide to you in a format that you could share this with others. We can make additional copies of these available to you as well. We have shared these with our legislative delegation, members of our county council delegation, other folks that may have interest in our annual report. So not only is that report available electronically on our website, but it is also available in this data format as well. So I just wanted to share with you one of the ways that we're trying to distribute that information. And again, several of you have asked how you can share this with some other folks as well, and this is a good way to do that.
How does it work? I mean,
You plug it right into your USB.
Well, how does it pop out?
Push the back button.
If you push the back of it, and it'll pop out just like that. Insert-
Little bit of a trick.
A little bit of a trick, yeah. Insert that in, and the entire annual report is contained right there for you. So some folks may not have the ability to get to us on the website, and this is a great way for you to share it. Again, if you need additional copies, just let us know. A few things that are coming up. We're going to have a very busy week this next week, and we'll hit on a couple of those items. One of those is our annual celebration as part of Earth Day. Our green team and members of our Public Services Department each year host what we refer to as the Amnesty Day. That'll be taking place on Saturday, the 25th. So we'll be gathering that morning through midday, and it's an opportunity for our community to bring in those items that they don't always have the opportunity to get rid of. So we'll be collecting paints and tires and those types of things. Folks have an opportunity to clean out their garage, clean out the attic, under the cabinet, those types of things. But those, often you just don't always have the ability to dispose of every item each week, either at our recycling center or at curbside. This is a great way for folks to be able to dispose of that material. So our staff will be on board and be working with our partners at ACE Environmental, and that'll be taking place on Saturday. So look forward to seeing you out there. Members of our green team will be on site as well, doing some public education with our community as folks come through. We'll also be shredding on that day as well, so folks have items, the documents that they need to have shred. This is a wonderful opportunity. Oftentimes right after April 15th, as folks are finishing up all their filing of their tax documents. Sometimes this is a great opportunity as they clean those out. They want to make sure those financial records are disposed of properly. Getting them properly shredded is a good way for us to do that. That equipment will be on site as well. This is open to residents of the city of Greer. Folks outside the city don't have the opportunity for this service. This is a service that we provide to our residents and the taxpayers of our community, and we look forward to providing that service on Saturday morning. We dealt briefly about the property on Snow Street in the presentation that was made. I do want to make you aware that we are in the process of that property being vacated. International Cathedral of Prayer is working to vacate the property. We have allowed them through the end of April 30th. We are in possession of keys to the property. We have access to the property. We're working cooperatively with International Cathedral of Prayer for that transition. At the conclusion of that transition, it is our intent to schedule a tour over at the site. We think it would be very helpful for you to come over and see the facility as it is now. Our recreation department, myself, are meeting, looking at some possible uses of that site as well. So as you consider proposals that possibly come from the community, as well as the opportunities that there may be available to us through our recreation department as well, we want to make sure that you've got a chance to see it, see how it could possibly be used, and then we'll come back to council and obviously look for direction from you on how you would like for us to proceed. We are working with Able, South Carolina, in doing ADA inspections of all of our properties. We have concluded a number of those last week, and we are waiting for the reports on those, but it was a very, very good process for us. Able SC brings staff on board that have accessibility needs. And it's a great tool and a great opportunity for us to recognize and see how handicapped individuals that may have accessibility issues or concerns can and need to maneuver around public properties. And this was a great experience for us. We're looking forward to their report soon, and we'll be keeping you informed as we continue to do inspections at all of our city properties. We are starting to issue certificates of occupancy for residential units in the area south of 85 that is located in the Reedville Fire District area. As you are aware, we have not yet been able to, or have not yet entered into an agreement with the Reedville Fire Department about service in that area. So those areas will be served initially by the Reedville Fire Department as folks start to occupy those residences. And then we're working very, very closely with the department. Service will be provided to that area. We're not concerned about that. But as that area does continue to grow, we know that similar to the agreements that we have with other special purpose districts in our area, we need to have a development agreement, a contractual agreement with the Reedville Fire Department as well, and we're beginning the early stages of working on that language. If you have opinion relative to that as we're working on that, please let us know. As you know, we obviously are in a transitionary period with leadership within our fire department. And so it's going to require us to bring a new chief on board and up to speed in our agreements and how we do that as we work with the Reedville Fire Department. Again, we thought it was in the best interest of the residents that are starting to occupy those homes that they had maintained consistent service in that area. Reedville will provide primary response, and then we will provide mutual aid secondary for that area until the agreement is reached.
How does that work with their insurance carriers and insurance rates, since their classification is a good bit lower than ours?
As far as the ISO rating?
Yes.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that. We are an ISO 2 department, and I believe they are an ISO 5. There may not be a difference in residential. Typically at that level, more of that is in the commercial and industrial classification, but I would have to confirm that to give you a definitive answer.
What about, and I guess this is things that we may need just to discuss, but I know that the level of medical service that we offer in our areas now is, from what I understand, would be a much higher level than what could be offered by the Reedville Department or I guess Spartanburg EMS is the one who provides the paramedic service. But I think that's going to be important that we look at that and to see how we can be servicing that as soon as possible. I mean, we've been able to partner with other departments, but I think our willingness to partner with those is because they provide the same level of service and have been very willing to work right alongside. And there's no, you take the names off the badges
Right.
in the trucks, and we're all the same. But I'm just not sure that it's the premium service that we like to offer, that we say that we do offer. We need to make sure we're doing that there.
Sure.
We've chosen to annex there, and chosen to provide infrastructure for development, and that's happening. But I don't think we should. I think we should be looking as soon as possible to provide services from the city.
Duly noted. If you do have the opportunity and you are by our 911 center or have any exchange of communication with those folks, just want to make you aware that this is Telecommunicator Week. And those folks over in our 911 center, our call center, are there obviously 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we sincerely appreciate the efforts of those folks. They do a stellar job for us with limited resources, and we are extremely grateful for their dedication and the work that they provide for us. So I did want to make you aware that this is Telecommunicator Week. We do have a council workshop scheduled next week as well. As I indicated, it's a busy week for us next week. We will have our consultant in from Evergreen Consulting out of Florida. They will be with us with council. That is at 5 p.m. next Tuesday evening here in Hall A. We will open in regular session for that meeting, and we will immediately go to executive session because the entire presentation is relative to our compensation and classification study, and we need to be able to review that, the findings of the consultant, and again, we will do that in executive session next Tuesday evening. Our community master plan workshop is also slated for next week. That is on Thursday evening, the 23rd. That is from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Cannon Center. Our consulting group with Kimley Horn will be working with all of our stakeholders that have been involved in that project. We are at the end of that project. They are bringing the final draft of the plan for review, and they will present that plan in its entirety to all of the stakeholders, and then there will be an opportunity for questions and discussion and feedback as a result of that as well. And then we will gather again at the end of May. More information will be coming out to you on that, but we will gather for truly a celebration of the true unveiling of our community master plan that'll take us from 2015 to 2030 and beyond. We have been working on this project for about a year and a half with our partners at Partnership for Tomorrow, Greer Development Corporation, CPW, the Chamber of Commerce. There's been a number of folks that have been involved in this process, but we do hope that your calendars will allow you to participate in that next Thursday evening. Again, it is the final presentation or the final draft of that document before we publish it in late May. As we've mentioned earlier, the transition that's taking place in our fire department, Chief Chris Harvey is quickly approaching his final days with us as the chief of our fire department. We've had an opportunity to introduce to our department and through a media release to our community Dorian Flowers, who has been named as our next fire chief. He will begin his official duties with us on the 27th. So we're only a little less than 2 weeks away of him coming on board. He will be here at your city council meeting on the 28th to officially meet you as well. And we look forward to getting him around and having the opportunity for you to meet him personally as well as collectively. It's going to be a busy week for us that week as well, because as we do gather on the 28th, we're also having an opportunity to celebrate Chief Harvey's time with us. We will be hosting a citywide reception, city employee-wide reception for him from 4 until 6 here in the lobby at City Hall. That'll be immediately prior to your 6:30 council meeting. So again, all of our employees are being invited to come by and greet and wish Chief Harvey well in his retirement. And that'll be taking place on the 28th from 4 to 6 here in the lobby at City Hall. As you're also aware, members of the department are hosting a dinner for him this Saturday evening, and many of us are going to be involved in that. We certainly hope that your plans are going to allow you to attend that event this Saturday evening for the dinner and roast of Chief Chris Harvey. So again, we're looking forward to that. Coming up for us in the very, very near future is also Family Fest. We're only a few weeks away from that. That is May 1st and 2nd, the first weekend in May. It'll be a Friday evening full of events and activities, and of course all day on Saturday as well. We are a principal sponsor in that event as well as other sponsors. We appreciate the opportunity to be involved with our Chamber of Commerce in this truly now a traditional community event. Family Fest that'll be taking place that first weekend in May. So we look forward to you joining the entire community as we celebrate that event here in our downtown area. As the mayor mentioned, we had a very successful international festival this past Saturday. Our recreation staff are estimating about 4,000 to 5,000 community members came through during that time period on Saturday. The weather cooperated. The vendors came with lots of food and ran out of food, and folks entertained and danced and sang, and it was truly the old saying, a good time had by all. That is a growing event for us. We look forward to starting our plans already for 2016 Our staff has already met to do a little debriefing on this year's event and starting their planning for next year as well. We ask for your feedback, things that you may have observed while you were here, things that we can do differently or better. We want to always improve and grow that festival, and we think we're on the right track to do that. So we look forward to good, positive feedback so that we can improve that moving forward. And of course, last week as well, we had our Touch a Truck event downtown. We partnered with Greer Station Association. That is always a wonderful, wonderful event. Brings children of all ages in for that event. Weather was a little inclement for us. It ran us off the street a little bit earlier than we would like for that to have occurred, but the crowd was phenomenal, and truly, the children loved that opportunity. We bring out the fire trucks and the police cars. We bring out our public service equipment, our recreation department equipment. We have tractors and everything that you can imagine. It shows up out there on Trade Street, and the kids get in line and they crawl on it and they have their picture made. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. So we appreciate the opportunity for Greer Station Association to sponsor their Tuesdays on Trade events, and we appreciate them allowing us to be included in many of those as well. Lots of activities happening. A couple of those we just completed. We have many more coming up. This next week is extremely busy for us. We've announced our summer movie program in the park. So that schedule is now published and available, and we'll start filling the park again on Thursday evenings, and then our partners over at Greer Cultural Arts as they get ready for their Tunes in the Park series this summer as well. It is a busy, busy spring and summer for us here at the City of Greer. We're appreciative of the opportunity to provide these for our community, and we're extremely appreciative of the many resources it takes through our staff to help make those happen. Every department of the city is involved to help make those events successful, and we are appreciative of the efforts that they make to do that. That concludes my report. There are a couple of items that I would like to ask council to consider tonight in executive session. One of those is an economic development matter to give you some briefing and update information on an item for economic development, and the other is a personnel matter involving our administrative department.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the update, and obviously lots of things going on. I understand as well, too, that our Touch a Truck event has turned into a friendly competition among our various departments. I took particular note of the fact that it appeared that our Public Services Department had not only washed but waxed their tractors and mowers that were in the event, and had polished the tires as well, not to be outdone by our fire department. So we will watch how that progresses, and we'll see a little friendly competition, I think, as well too, about who's going to have the cleanest vehicles at the Touch a Truck event next year. So good event. The kids thoroughly enjoyed it. We'll move to items of old business this evening, if it's your pleasure, council, and entertain the first one of those items, which is the second and final reading of ordinance number 7-2015. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by Tenick Holdings Incorporated located at 2204 Country Club Road by 100% petition, and to establish a zoning classification of DRD for said property. Mr. Pace, we appreciate you joining us this evening. Any update or new information that might be appropriate for us this evening?
Yes, sir. You'll have to excuse me, the allergies have gotten to me for about the last week and a half now, so I apologize for the coughing that I've been doing and also my voice. But again, this went to the Planning Commission on 3/16 for 31 townhomes. This is the first step of the DRD process. One resident spoke in concerns with traffic for Arlington Road. No other comments were received from public, and again, this is recommended by the Planning Commission for approval.
Just as a matter of clarification, you mentioned Arlington Road. Was it Arlington Road or Country Club Road that the resident had a concern about?
Believing they were in concern, I believe, Arlington.
Oh, Arlington Road is that connector to that
Yes,
site?
where it
Okay.
comes to Country Club,
okay,
yes.
Yeah, okay, I understand now. All
Yes,
right.
sir. There at the intersection.
Okay, it didn't dawn on me that Arlington went that far, yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about. Recommendation from staff council, you heard it, I'll entertain a motion to receive.
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion? Questions? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Ms. Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. We have the second and final reading of ordinance 11-2015, an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by Tracy Gabriella Marsan Ward located at 126 Gulf Street by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification of R12 for said property. Mr. Pace?
Again, Mayor and Council, Plan Commission met on 3/16, had no concerns from residents in the area, and this annexation is for the purpose of city services for that particular parcel, and Planning Commission did approve the request unanimous.
I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Ms. Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. This is the second and final reading of ordinance number 12-2015. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of properties owned by McGee Properties of Greenville located on Pleasant Drive and Wayman Drive by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification of R12 for said properties. Mr. Pace?
Mayor and Council, this is for construction of 28 single-family detached dwellings on the properties. Again, we had one concern with one resident in the area at 402 Wayman Drive. As long as it didn't impact his property or force him to be annexed, he was okay. Once that fear was relieved, he was okay with any issues concerning this. Planning Commission did approve this unanimous also.
Council comes with a recommendation from staff. Do I hear a motion to receive?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, I now have a second. Discussion? Questions? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Ms. Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, the last item of old business that we have this evening is the second and final reading of ordinance number 13-2015. This is an 11th supplement ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of City of Greer, South Carolina Combined Utility System Refunding Revenue Bonds Series 2015 in the principal amount not exceeding $4.7 million, authorizing the mayor or city administrator and the general manager of the Greer Commission of Public Works to determine certain matters with respect to the bonds prescribed in the form and details of the bonds and other matters relating thereto. We have entertained information from Mr. Reynolds with the CPW in this regard. Comes to you as second reading. Do I hear a motion to receive?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion.
We were notified by their legal counsel that there are no changes to the ordinance for second reading, no new information.
Comments? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Ms. Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council will move to items of new business, the first of which is the first reading of ordinance number 14-2015, an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by the City of Greer, located at 3511 Brushy Creek Road from R20 to DRD. Mr. Pace?
Again, Mayor and Council, this was heard by the Planning Commission on the 16th of March. No one spoke in favor or in opposition to the request. This is for the 1 acre portion that the city does own and is under contract to sell to Western Development at this time. And this would be incorporated into the apartment community that would be developed on the adjacent parcels. And the Planning Commission did recommend unanimously.
With that, then, do I hear a motion to receive?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Questions? Discussion? Comments? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Council.
Thank you. We have a request by Councilman Jay Arrowood this evening to discuss downtown development standards. Councilman Arrowood, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess it has been some time back, because prior to the council meeting, I was talking amongst some fellow council members, and I don't think everybody sitting here tonight was on the original council who passed the downtown overlay district. And if I'm summarizing too broadly or incorrectly, please let me know, Mr. Driggers. But the development standard that we approved, in my best recollection, was if you develop, you remodel, or you build new, the building in downtown, in that overlay district, no matter what the zoning is, has to look like downtown. In that ordinance, I believe there are some photographs that show different materials to be used, colors, that kind of thing. Recently, we've had new construction go on, and for a existing business that's relocating. And when they submitted their plans, it's my understanding that staff said, no, this doesn't meet that standard. Your option now is, if you want to proceed, is to go to the Board of Architectural Review. They approved it. So what we have now is a building which is non-conforming. Now, I've asked Mr. Driggers to try to find out, if, from a legal standpoint, what kind of position that puts us in for future development in the overlay district. Does this set a precedent, or do we need to go back and find a way to reset the clock? And were you able to find that information or get an opinion from our legal counsel?
I have not received a response. We've had conversation, but we've not received the opinion. I did have an opportunity today to talk with some folks at the Municipal Association as well, that are pretty familiar with these types of issues as well. The feedback that I've received is that an elected body or an appointed board or commission, under their authority to approve or deny a request, that is non-binding on future decisions. At issue is that of concern legally would not be that something is approved as much as it would be that something is denied. Because in the denied environment, you have to be able to demonstrate the basis for the denial. The approval, you don't have to do that. But for denial, you do have to establish the basis for the denial. So the non-legal opinion that I received from the folks that are more familiar with some of the zoning issues would be that it has no bearing for future decisions. That the next project could come and the BAR could say no. But because they say no, then does that become a takings? Does that become an issue that the property owner cannot use their property as they purchased or intended it to be? Now, that's where we now need more of the legal opinion, because we certainly know that under state statutes for zoning, local government has the authority to impose zoning requirements for development standards. That's what we know to this point.
Well, if council is interested, I would ask that Mr. Driggers continue to work with our legal counsel to get an opinion on it, because if I put myself in the place of someone who owns property in downtown, and I say, I want to build in our downtown overlay district, and I want to build a building. Well, I know I can build something that's at least, up to 3 stories. And if I wanted to do that if the exterior of that building wanted to be metal siding, I'm sure staff probably would turn that down. But then, okay, now I take it to the DAR, and they say, no, we're not going to approve that. Well, then my question to them is, you've already done it once before, and it wasn't just on a small scale, it's a large scale. And it looks like to me that would be something that there could be a legal challenge. And to me, in a non-legal mind, is that there could be a challenge, and I don't know how you defend that. I mean, although you just say,
Well,
that
as our attorney has always told us, we can be legally challenged on anything.
Right.
I mean, obviously, someone could file suit against you if they disagree with your decision. But the big issue for us is what's the legal basis for how that would be determined. What is the case law? What is out there? And that's what we are inquiring of our legal counsel, is that if that were to be challenged, what is the city's position? Because we would have a responsibility to represent the interest of the BAR. They are an appointed board and commission of the city council, so we would have responsibility to represent them as well. So you're absolutely right. I think we need to know the answer to that. Now, relative to this particular issue, I have to really defer to Mr. Pace a bit here as well. There is some confusion, at least on my part, there's some confusion, because we have a C1 zoning district. Inside the C1 district, we have multiple sub-districts. One of those is a historic district, which has boundaries within the C1. We also have a downtown overlay district, which may or may not be the entire C1. And then there's a fire district there as well. And quite honestly, it creates some amount of confusion in an area where those district boundaries are literally at property lines, not necessarily even at streets.
Doesn't our overlay district, it encompasses more than C1?
Yes, sir.
I believe there's residential,
There is some residential.
I-1.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
For the overlay, right. So we have that district, which doesn't include, I don't think it includes all of C1, but it includes zoning outside of C1.
Correct.
The particular project at the intersection of Depot and Randall, is that the boundary line of the historic district?
No, sir. The boundary line of the historic district are the buildings primarily identified by the, I can't think, National Register of Historic Properties.
Right.
It is only a few buildings on Poinsett, those on Trade Street, that face Trade Street, and maybe a couple on Randall Street being the extent of the actual national district.
So do the development standards that Councilmember Airwood was addressing, do those apply only to the historic district or to the downtown overlay district?
To the downtown overlay.
And this individual property is within the downtown
Correct.
overlay district?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just want to make for clarification where what applies. Okay.
So just in general terms, what are the boundaries of the overlay district?
Pulling that map up. All right, goes up Line Street here, covers the front properties of Line Street that face Line Street. Goes back to Arlington Avenue, back to Arlington Avenue to Miller, covering the east side of Miller all the way down to McCall Street, and then down South Main to Moore Street, encompassing Mayfield, Daniel Avenue, back down to Marchant, and then again covering where the previous Victor Baptist Church was located. And some on Poinsett, East Poinsett, encompassing properties there also.
So does any new construction in that district require BAR approval?
Currently, it's not actually a requirement. It is staff's jurisdiction as it stands, but when conflict arises, we allow the Board of Architects review for that review purposes, for conflict resolution in that particular area.
Well, here's what I'm trying to get my arms around. Who determines what the conflict is?
Well, if I deny the situation, the construction, then that's their right of appeal, is that process.
And that's what happened in this case. Staff denied. And the project requested appeal to the denial. And the only resource for that to go to was the Board of Architectural Review as an appeals group, as an appeals board.
Well, that goes back to my original question then. Is all new construction reviewed in some regard? I mean, did that apply to the new residents that are built in that area?
It would be required also. However, during the adoption of this, I don't have the exact date, I don't recall, but it was discussed during that process that it did encompass residential properties. However, the enforcement of those residential properties would not be impacted due to the fact, as long as they remained as residential properties and not being developed as commercial properties. Being a zoning change or something to incorporate it for a commercial component. And when we looked at that overall area, that's why we picked up Line Street, Miller Street, and those other streets, because some commercial had already taken place in certain portions of those streets. And the demising line was those properties deep on some of those streets.
And one of the questions that we're asking of our legal counsel as well is, we understand if there's a staff denial of a process that there has to be an appeal. And that's clear that there has to be an appeal process. What we're inquiring of is, under the South Carolina Comprehensive Planning Act, does that appeal have to go to a Board of Architectural Review, or can that appeal come to City Council? Who is the appeal authority under those conditions? Now, my belief is that the South Carolina Comprehensive Planning Act is going to say that appeal is done by an architectural review board, which is the group we have appointed. But we need to confirm that. And if that is the case, then it was routed correctly to the right folks. If that's not the case, then council would need to give us direction of whether or not those types of appeals would indeed go to the Board of Architectural Review, or would they come to another appeals body, or would they come to council. I don't believe the South Carolina Comprehensive Planning Act allows for zoning-related appeals to be heard by the council. I think those have to be heard by planning boards and commissions. So that's my understanding.
Correct, and we can establish clearly exactly what that process is. That's what the requirement is, that there has to be an established mechanism in place for an appeal of a decision based on different aspects. And construction issues, it goes to the Construction Board of Adjustments Appeals. For zoning issues, it goes to the BZA. For architectural requests, generally it goes to like an architectural review board. Absent those, it can come to the council, but it has to have, but I don't think it specifically forbids it.
Mr. Pace, your understanding is different than that?
Yeah, I thought it had to come from one of the...
It may be that,
Yeah.
I would defer to Mr. Pace.
And again, that's why we're asking Mr. Duggan and Mr. Hughes to give us some clarification.
So let me back up just a minute. So the Board of Architectural Review primary function is in regard to commercial as opposed to residential, even though residential is included in the overlay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We don't review residential development as long as it's residential development within that overlay. Only for commercial development is what we currently review.
All right, let me ask this then, because it's a point that Mr. Arrowwood raised. If a structure is reviewed and modifications or changes are approved by the BAR, can they actually approve a non-conforming use?
If they are comfortable with their decision and made that decision in good faith with the the documentation that they had before them. Again, haven't thought of it in regards to a non-conforming portion of that.
You know, I find this whole thing particularly interesting because we see this on a much grander scale in Charleston and now in Greenville. You know, a huge major project in downtown Greenville that was denied, you know, on the first review because of the exterior structure. A huge building that Clemson was going to do in downtown Charleston, denied by the Board of Architectural Review. You know, I understand in both of those cases that, and certainly in our case as well too, that we want to have a standard that we observe, but I also think that it's that it's interesting that, you know, that we all may value different things in terms of their beauty or their construction or whatever, and so that's what I find so interesting about this is while we want to maintain a flavor and a character, you know, I think we also in some regards want to be open to new ideas and occasionally different ways of viewing things. So maybe what we need to do is pursue this more in some sort of workshop setting or something that council could have a better understanding of how all this works and then meet possibly with some of our boards and commissions about what our vision is, help them better understand that. I don't know that I have a particularly clear understanding of it or a definitive way of addressing that at this point right now myself, to tell you the honest truth.
And we've identified that need exists presently with the Planning Commission as well, and we've had that discussion and we're moving toward making that happen. This very well could be an opportunity that all review boards Board of Architectural Review, Planning Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals, all of those folks, that this could be a good opportunity for us to make sure that we're all on the same page.
I think that's important. Now, beauty's in the eye of the beholder to some regard, and so if, the final say is at that level, we need to be clear about what our definition of beauty is, I guess.
Yeah, because we've talked about it at council before, that there could be a retail establishment that wants to come into the overlay district, that their business model is, we use pre-engineered steel building. And right now, that's what the majority of this particular building is. And I understand you're going to the other end of the spectrum with what you're saying is faced in other places. But, if council feels like pre-engineered steel buildings fit in downtown, then I don't guess we have to do anything. But also remember, we have different zoning classifications in that overlay district. You could have a 3-story pre-engineered steel building that's some sort of processing facility. And I think one of the reasons behind our moving to, is this sort of a form-based zoning? Is that?
That was an attempt. Yes, sir.
Well, see, that way you can have residential, you could have commercial, you could even have light manufacturing, but it all looks the same. And when you get into some of your more the uses that really all they need is a shell of a building, but may not be the best fit in this overlay district, the entry-level cost, they're not going to go there because of, well, I've got to have a brick veneer, awnings, things like that, instead of some roll-up doors and steel panel walls.
Well, maybe what we need to look at as well, too, is where those boundary lines are and that sort of thing. I mean, if you look at even Main Street in downtown Greenville, the minute you cross the bridge, or, cross where the old bridge was there, across Augusta Street there, I guess, and start into the west end, the flavor of the buildings, is dramatically different than what you see, even several blocks the other way. So maybe what we need to determine as well, too, is what's appropriate for one area and what's appropriate for another. Council, any other thoughts or ideas?
I would definitely like us to have the clarity on it. I think that would be, and I know we spoke before about meeting with our other board members, but I think it would be good. I know I wasn't on council at the beginning of the whole initiative, but I remember the council retreats that we started talking about the style that we wanted to be downtown, and it definitely wasn't the metal buildings. Change that.
I think it'd be beneficial. I mean, I'd like a better understanding, of why we're only addressing basically commercial if indeed these residential and other buildings are going to exist inside the same thing. I mean, we for the first time in many, many years are having new residential construction in the area that we've defined. Is this to say that it precludes somebody from doing a very modern-looking home on a street that's lined with early 1900 Tudors? I mean, I think we need some clarity in that.
Well, that's where this standard has no residential design standard for it. It only deals with the commercial structures, although, like I say, they are different zoning districts. I think that the intent at that time was not to impact residential structures.
How does that residential with multifamily, does that fall in the category of it's not governed by that?
Multifamily, yes, sir, that would not fall under a specific guideline of this. It would fall, again, by the zoning classification. Are you talking about the one that we looked at before, previously? Or if
Well,
something comes to,
I mean, there's any area in that overlay district where somebody wanted to do, whether it's one building, multi-floors, or if it's several, apartment units,
Right.
whether it's right down here, here again, that's something that I think needs to be
yeah.
addressed.
Currently, some of those would be in the C1 district, which we don't allow, excuse me, up to a certain standard in C1 for the just straight living units. They have to be mixed-use type occupancies for that to take place. So they would have to seek a rezoning of the particular property for construction of a multifamily complex. And that would be, dealing with all the different boards, that would be a planning commission issue to decide on a specific zoning classification.
So if somebody had a lot in, let's say, the C1 district, and they wanted to do a 3-story building, and it's going to be multifamily.
Right.
Although we allow for mixed use, we don't allow,
Strictly residential.
Not in C1.
Right.
what is that?
Just the way it,
I mean,
It's been that way for
I don't, I
years.
mean, it is as our ordinance is written.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily sure of the rationale. Typically, it is because C1s are main streets. They are central business districts, and the intent is that the housing would be live work. Downstairs, commercial, second level residential. That's typically what you would see in a C1. Could you have a standalone 8 apartments, 8 townhomes on a single lot? Yes, you could, but it would require both council and the planning commission to rezone that property. Under our existing ordinance, we would deny it.
I would think so. And it would offer the avenue of what we've done with a lot of development, new development, is the DRD avenue for them to do that project, and again, have a design standard that is reviewed by the planning commission and city council.
So maybe a good opportunity for us to spend some time talking about zoning and overlay districts and historic preservation and how all that fits together and what our community standard is today versus maybe what our community standard was 10, 20 years ago.
Sounds appropriate. We'll look for staff in terms of direction in that regard. I know we're going to have some budget negotiations and discussions and workshops coming up. Maybe as we move beyond that, we could set aside some time to engage in some discussions regarding planning and zoning standards and work on that some this summer as we move forward.
The workshop environment would be very helpful to us as staff because it would enable us to understand what you desire, we then can tailor the ordinances to fit that versus bringing you a proposed ordinance and then, trying to debate whether we want to make amendments to that. So I think if we can understand what council's desire is and it's directed to the planning commission, to do it that way, I think it would be very, very helpful.
Glad to do so.
We'll look forward to that opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Harewood?
No, sir. Thank you.
With that, then we'll move to executive session. We've got one economic development matter to consider and one personnel matter to consider. Do I hear a motion to adjourn into executive session? So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Ms. Bookert,
Yes?
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Ms. Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. In executive session, we have considered one economic development matter, one personnel matter. We've taken no action in regards to either. Do I hear a motion we come out of executive session? So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Ms. Bookert,
Yes?
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Ms. Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Stand adjourned.